Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. We have somebody unique today, Nigel Bennett, who is the CEO and founder of Aqua-Guard Spill Response. So, anytime and every time you've looked at a spill in the ocean and you've been worried about it, Nigel and his team were there trying to save the day. And over the years, Nigel and his company have come to regard water for what it is, the precious resource it is, and have done their due in terms of helping save it for all of us. Besides that, Nigel has done his own piece and continues to do things through philanthropy that we will hear from him directly as well. Lots of interesting things that he's doing, and he's also the author of Take That Leap. We'll hear about his book and his speaking career as well. So he's done a tremendous amount of things in his life. He continues to do it, and he's come a long way with his company and with his own life in terms of what he wants to do. So welcome, Nigel.
Thanks, Rajiv. I'm really, really excited to be here on your show. Yeah.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks.
So this is pretty amazing, saving the oceans. And how did you end up being the CEO and the founder of your company?
Well, it's quite interesting. Our chat behind the scenes beforehand here was interesting. What you said was very kind of very critical point. Was that most of us fall into our careers by accident. Some of us go to university, some of us don't. Some of us go in to be an engineer, but come out and be a doctor. Some of us go in and we some of the time we don't actually come out and do the career that we were trained for. I fell into my career right out of high school. It was literally the next day after I graduated from high school, and I'm dyslexic and have ADD, so I had a very difficult time in school. And I think my parents were very frustrated with me, and I didn't know where I was going to go after high school. But my father had an environmental mapping company where he was mapping coastlines around the world, and he was doing what was called a national oil spill contingency plan for 9 different countries over 10 years. So after high school, I was on a flight the next day as a young 18-year-old, I think I was 18-year-old kid, a little bit hungover, coming out of high school to the parties, and I was on a flight for Caracas, Venezuela. On my own. I had no idea where I was going. He had a project there. Within about a week, I found myself in a helicopter, hanging out the side of a helicopter with a camera, photographing Lake Maracaibo in a counterclockwise direction. At the base of the lake, I never forget what I saw. I saw some indigenous people living in little huts on sticks on the water on the lake. And as we flew further up the lake, up the west side of the lake, I saw oil everywhere being spilled from rigs and derricks and all over the lake and all over the coastline of the lake. And as we flew further north, we got a little bit too close to the Colombian border, and our helicopter was hailed by the FARC guerrillas, which were operating at the time and still are operating down there in Colombia and Venezuela. They were taking pot shots at our helicopter. I was 18 years old at the time, scared to death as our helicopter veered, and I almost this gentleman that was working with us, he grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and held me inside so I didn't fall out because the chopper was open. I was taking photos. I was standing on the skeg, and we veered, and we were, I guess, close to being shot down. So from that point on, I found myself in about 9 different countries in about 10 years. I was working for my father's company. And I ended up in Egypt for about 5 years on and off. And I had to do a similar survey down the Red Sea, down the Gulf of Suez. And as I was heading to a helicopter base, I had to go through a military checkpoint. Went through the military checkpoint going south from Suez and went to a little place called Asgada. And there was 2 helicopters at this base. And as we drove in, I was with an Egyptian guy that was working with us, Isham. And I walked up to the base, and this big American fellow waddled out. And this was in the early 1980s, so he was an ex-Vietnam pilot that had been wounded in Vietnam and he had been shot in the leg or something. So he had a bit of a limp. And he came up to me and he said to me, and I'll never forget this. He said, I know why you're here. I know what you're doing. And I know what I'm allowed to do. But he said, what you're doing, do you really think that you can make a difference? Do you really think you can make a difference in the world by taking some photographs and whatnot? But I was 18 or 19 or 20 or whatever I was at that time. I really thought that I could make a difference. And we loaded in the helicopter, and I was in the co-pilot seat, and I had the helmet on, and I had the walkie-talkie or whatever it is that you speak through. And he was on the other side flying, and then he said, okay, now we can really talk. I'm not supposed to take you to some certain areas, but I'm going to take you there anyway. I have to pick up some oil workers along the way, and what I want you to do is I want you to keep your camera between your legs and only take photographs through your feet, because there was glass in the floor of the helicopter. I want to take you some photographs when I tell you to, but don't let the guys in the back seat see your camera, because we could be arrested and thrown in jail for spying. This was absolutely insane. As a young kid, I was going to the British Columbia Institute of Technology at the time, which I had been able to get into after high school. And I was kind of in a break. It was a 3-month break, and I was over in Egypt doing this flyover. And so we flew over to the Sinai Peninsula, like a large triangle, and we dropped these oil workers off, and we lifted off again. And then Johnny, the helicopter pilot, said to me, okay, now I'm going to take you to some areas that I'm not supposed to take you to, but I want to take you to as many photographs as you can, and then show people back home what it's really like out here. So as we lifted up, we flew up the north, the Sinai, and it was pipeline after pipeline after pipeline of ruptured. It was oil flowing into the sea, into the Red Sea, or into the Gulf of Suez. I'd never seen anything like that. Venezuela was really bad, but this was 10 times worse. So I worked I was in Egypt on and off for 5 years. We had an apartment in Alexandria, and I spent a bit of time in Cairo, but I was mostly mapping the coastlines. I was a scuba diver too, so I was under the water taking photographs of the reefs, and I noticed that in a lot of places, the reefs on the windward side of the island covered in oil, and the reefs were dead, and they were bleached. And on the leeward side of the island, where the wind doesn't touch, the winds don't blow, they were clean and pristine, and they were beautiful. So on our last day of working in Egypt, my father was supposed to come to Cairo, and I was going to go meet him. And I had a phone call in the afternoon, and I was cleaning up our apartment, and I was going to have a guy drive us to Cairo. And when I got to Cairo, this gentleman grabbed me by the arm, and he came down, grabbed me by the arm out of my taxi, took me up the stairs into this room, and sat me on the floor in the dark. And I was sitting in the dark till 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were whispering, and he said, don't talk too loud, people may be able to hear us. I really didn't know what was going on. And then about 3 o'clock in the morning, a phone on the old desk rang, and he went and he picked it up, and he just said, yep, it's for you. Mm-hmm. And so I picked up the phone, and it was my father on the other end, and he'd been arrested. And he basically told me in code, to take the next bus and stay with Mike, which was my cousin that lived in London. So my father had been arrested, and I was convinced by the other gentleman who actually worked for us that I had to get out of the country as soon as I could. And I was like, there's no way I'm leaving my father here. And he said, you have to go, because if they grab you as well, they'll have more bargaining power. And it was really, really difficult. So I got on a flight. I flew to London. My father was incarcerated for about 6 months. And because a key witness against him died in jail, they let him go. But as I got back to Vancouver, where our head office was, I was processing things in my head. I didn't know what was going on. But then I realized that over time, that my father and our ethics clashed. Fortunately, our ethics really clashed. So my sister was working at my father's company as well, and another few people. And so what I ended up having to do was I broke off my father's company, and I formed Aqua-Guard Spill Response, because I never wanted that to ever happen ever again. And unfortunately, my father and I have been estranged for quite a few years because of this and various other things. But that was the biggest step. The biggest thing that I'd have to do was I had to break away from our family business and do our own thing. And it was really tough for many years. But I'd been to 10 different countries. I was in Brazil, I was in Indonesia, I was in China, I was in Egypt for a long time, and in Venezuela, many countries. But I'd had so many people ask me, can you help us? We have this oil everywhere. We have a mess everywhere. We don't have any type of equipment that can recover this. And I'd gone to the British Columbia Institute of Technology, and I was in the mechanical engineering program. And another fellow that I worked with, I was more of the sales type of person. He was more mechanically inclined. So what we did is we designed equipment to help contain and then recover these oil spills. And then within about 20 years, or 25 years, or 20 years now, I guess, 25 years, we've done business in about 104, 105 countries around the world. We have about 3,000 clients. But that was, talking about your plan B, I was very, very young, and I had to really scramble and come up with a plan B at that time. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I rambled on a little bit, but that's a little bit of history there. It goes back quite a long time. I'm 57 now. I was 18 or 19 when all that was going down.
When you look back at your career, when you look back at Aqua-Guard, what were some of the riskiest things that you did, or what stands up to you as an adventure?
Every day was an adventure. If there's entrepreneurs or soon to be entrepreneurs in the audience here, the one thing about being an entrepreneur is every day is never boring. Every day is an adventure. There's so many stories. At the very beginning, the toughest thing was, getting some business. I had clients, but I had to get them to, sign some contracts, and we had to come up with some ideas, and we had to send them some prototypes to look at for equipment, skimming systems to recover oil. But all the while, I just been married. I was married in 1989, and my wife and I had a tiny little house, and then we had a couple of kids, and then we leveraged everything for our new business. And, we had a car. We had a little old Nissan hatchback, which was my wife's father's car, and the floorboards were rusted out in the back seat. You can see the road. And we had two kids in their baby seats looking at the road as we were driving.
Oh, shoot.
So everything was on edge. We had our garage rented. We had every room in our little tiny house rented out to students to make ends meet. But at that point in time, we didn't know we were living in this chaos. It was just the way it was. And it was risky. Every day was risky, but it was just a big, bold adventure, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. It really helped form who my wife and I are today.
Right. So you were in the business of saving the environment and then the social responsibility aspect of it, but at the same time, it was a business. So
it was a business. Yes.
When you look at your clientele, what aspect, what did you see? Did they see it more as a business, or was the social responsibility inclination as much as well?
Well, I've always, I'm only figuring this out in the past 10 years, that I've always really been kind of socially conscious. And I really only awoke to that probably in 2010 when I did a big trip down into the Amazon. But for me, I really wanted to help. I really wanted to help our clients. They were coming to us. They were coming to us with problems that we could help solve. So that's how it started off. We listened to our clients and developed equipment and products to help them, as opposed to me, myself and my business partner in a room coming up with the greatest idea in the world and then trying to sell it. Mm-hmm. And then it was the other way around. Mm-hmm. We listened to our client base. We just developed products and services to help them. Yeah, so that was in 1992. I ended up breaking off from my father's business there, and it's evolved ever since. Yeah.
So how's Aqua-Guard doing right now?
It is great. It's doing great. I've been able to set it up to run pretty much without me. Back in 2012, I have a young crew of people that are full of vim and vigor, flying all over the world, and I'm involved in it. But I had I'll step back a few years. I'll step back a few years for you too. Back in the early days, my life was complete chaos, and I call it the doorknob effect. most people could probably understand this. So I would go into work every day, and I would stand outside my building, and I would put my hand on my doorknob, on the doorknob to enter into the building. And I would just stand there, I'd take a deep breath, I would just, because I didn't know what was going to happen on the other side of that door. It was going to be a bee's nest. People would need me, and it would be completely out of control. So I lived like this for many years, and I would be in the shower in the morning just thinking, okay, what's the day going to be like? Can I hire anybody to do this? Or do I have to lay people off? When's our next contract coming in? So I lived like that for quite a few years. And a friend of mine who was a professional football player, he was a lineman, 300-pound lineman, Trevor. And he just finished playing professional ball. And he had started an insurance company. And he joined a group called the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. And he knew the chaos I was living in. He says, Nigel, you need to come with me to one of these meetings. It's a peer group of entrepreneurs, all just starting out. They're all young. And, I live by this. This has really helped me. And I said, absolutely no way. I've got I think we either had 2 or maybe 3 kids at this point. Young family, young business. I didn't have 2 minutes in the day for anything like this. And he literally grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, because he's a 300-pound guy. And he took me to this meeting. And that's one of the best decisions that I ever made in my life, was join that. My wife and I both agree that joining a peer group like that was something that I never thought that I'd be able to do, but it was the one thing that has been so profound in our lives. It's changed everything for the better. And, I'm still involved in these groups 25 years later. I'm still involved in various types of groups like this. And another thing was that when I did break off from my father's company, we had a business coach helping us coaches to break off. And I was calling out and going to breakfast with him, once a week. And he said, Nigel, but I was mostly speaking about personal stuff as opposed to business stuff. He was a business coach. He said, Nigel, I really can't help you anymore with this. It's personal. And so he said, but here's a guy, give him a call. His name's Kevin Lawrence. And he's now works with a Gazelle's coach with a group under Vern Harnish. Vern Harnish is and you probably know Vern. And so I hired this coach. I've been working with him for 15 years. So he allowed me to set things up to basically, at the end of the day, run the business without me. And that was my goal, to get my freedom back. And it took quite a long time. It took us probably 10 years of working very hard, but we were able to do that. And a day came in, I think it was 2011, where I'm in this peer group called the Young Entrepreneurs Organization, which evolved into the Entrepreneurs Organization, which led me to an offshoot called Birthing of Giants at MIT, which is an entrepreneurs conclave, which then evolved into something called Gathering of Titans. So I've been in this Gathering of Titans group for, it's our 16th year this year. And we're a conclave of entrepreneurs. There's 75 of us that meet once a year for 5 days on an off-campus conference center at MIT. And I've been in this group for quite a while, and a speaker came in, and her name was Lynn Twist. And she ran the 100 Project globally for many years. She worked with Mother Teresa in India for quite a long time. And then she formed a group called the Pachamama Alliance, which is based out of San Francisco, but it works with the indigenous tribes of the Amazon to help preserve their way of life. And she also wrote a book called The Soul of Money, which is a fabulous book, by the way. So Lynn was a speaker at my class at MIT, and at the end of her talk, she invited our whole class to go deep into the Amazon with her to experience this tribe that only worked with her group. They had no other contact with outside people, and they'd only been discovered about 10 years previous. So I put my hand up. I was like, what an opportunity to go and do something like this, right? And so I said to Lynn was actually sitting right beside me, because our speakers come and actually sit in the conclave with us for 5 days, and they become part of our group. I said to Lynn, I went up and I hugged her and I said, Lynn, I'm coming on your trip, but there's one thing. I need to bring my family with me. And she said, well, it's kind of a CEO thing. I want to show CEOs in a bit of a fundraiser type thing. And I said, I understand that, but I have this much bandwidth in my life, left remaining. I was in my 50s at the time, and this much influence. But my kids have this much, so much more. And then they also have social media and all their groups, and they can tell the two friends. So the word will get out over much larger period of time if I bring them along. So she agreed, and we took them. But I was having a bit of a difficult time because I'd been offered to sell my business to a large British competitor, and our deal was done. I had a deposit, all the due diligence was done, everything was done, and I was finally going to get my freedom back because I've been living in this crazy bee's nest of a business for 20 plus years. I was finally going to get my freedom back, and so I was a little perplexed. So I ended up going to the Amazon, and we ended up doing a bit of a ceremony, and I had no idea what we were doing. We met the indigenous peoples. We landed in a little Cessna, our whole family crammed in a plane, all five of us flying over deep into the Amazon, landing on a dirt runway, getting into canoes, and then spending time with this tribe in this little village of theirs. And we did this ceremony called ayahuasca, which is a bit of a hallucinogenic. And they actually use this now to treat heroin addiction and addictions here in our Western world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did this ceremony, and I took this stuff, and there was a shaman there, and I sat in front of the shaman. I didn't even know what a shaman was at the time, and I sat in front of the shaman, and he kind of started waving a feather around and whistling. And then I saw this face looking at me. It was this face it was almost a face of a Buddha. And it was a great, warm, beautiful, warm face. And I felt fantastic. I thought, I feel great. And then the face changed to this face of great responsibility, staring right through into my soul. And I was really scared, and I sat back. I was sitting on this log, and I sat back, and I was terrified. And then the face turned back to this beautiful face, like a Buddha face. And I went back, I was put on a banana leaf. I was laying on this banana leaf, and then I went off on this cerebral journey over the Amazon, flying and whatnot. But then I flew back to Vancouver, and what I think happened is it tapped deep into my conscience. I think I was perplexed at the time whether to sell my business for a big bag of cash and have every entrepreneur's dream, sit on the beach and sell t-shirts. I don't know, but have a big bag of cash. But then I realized that I think what the face was trying to tell me was that I had great responsibility. And I had a great responsibility not to sell my business, but to keep my business, grow my business, leverage the crap out of my business to do whatever good was. And so I flew to London, and I took the deal off the table, and I said the business is not for sale. I'm sorry. And I came back, bought out my partner of 30 years now, almost 30 years, who's a minority, and I brought another fellow up who was just under him that had been working with me since he was 18 and knew more about the business than actually I did, and set it up to basically run without me, and I was able to take a year off. I traveled with my whole family. We went to 17 countries around the world, and we created some nonprofits, and we started heavily. We'd always been involved in philanthropic work, actually giving of ourselves, building homes in Mexico for the homeless. We guided, 18 or 19 trips to Mexico. We've taken probably 700 people down to Mexico to help build homes with my kids since my daughter was 3 years old. My kids are all in their mid-20s now. And we really started leveraging that and doing what I feel, for me anyway, is really important, and that's giving back and helping society in any way I can. And that's I have no idea what your original question was, but
No, that's pretty awesome. You basically walked us through, how you set out on your journey from being a businessman, being an entrepreneur, all the way to actually giving back, which is pretty awesome. And that's what everybody wants to do, right? That's probably the American dream or the dream of any person.
That's a really good point that everybody wants to do. And I was at that point too, many years ago. I really wanted to do something, but I had no idea where to start. And I saw friends of mine in my forum group. We did a focus group inside my EO organization. And we were down on a chapter retreat in San Diego. And my buddy David Ash, who I admire this guy so much. He's one of my heroes. He had been able to set his business up. fairly early, and he got heavily involved in philanthropy, heavily in working with the homeless and all over the world. And I just admired him. And I sat down, I had lunch with Dave, and I was just like you said, everybody wants to do something, but what do we do? Where do we start? And I said to Dave, I want to do something, but I have no idea what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he leaned over the table, he looked at me, he goes, Nigel, not that difficult. Find something. If there's somebody on the street, a homeless person, sit down and have a chat with them. Find out, their history. People feel that they're invisible. They feel that they're invisible because nobody talks to them. Give them $5. Don't question what they're going to do with it. Yes, they probably have a high possibility of going to buy drugs or something with it, but don't question. Start doing little things like that. And after you do a few little things, things will unfold. So I said, okay, sounds all right. I'll try that. So I did. I with a few homeless people, and I started giving them just a little bit of $5 and having a little chat with them. And then everything broke open, and Dave invited us to go many years ago with our kids to this Homes of Hope in Mexico to help build homes for the homeless. First, I didn't want to go, and then the second year, he showed me some photographs of his experience taking his kids, and then that started us off. And now I'm 20 years later, and we were leading trips. I never thought in my wildest dreams I would ever lead trips to Mexico to help build homes. That was so far from anything. I was running a business. But now, so many years later, here we are, and it's just naturally, organically happened.
Something comes to mind with what you just said, right? So there's two kinds of life. There's one kind of life where you want everything planned and everything set up for you, and you want to know what the future holds, and then you want to be able to execute your present into that future. That's what employees do, right? You know what you want to make in terms of a salary, the kind of work that you have, the goals that you got to meet, and then you set it up. You set your year up in order to meet those goals and make your money. And on the other end, the entrepreneurial journey, what you've done over 20 plus years, which is every day is different. It's that risk that you take. But the point is, things unfold every step of the way. Just like what you did with your philanthropic journey, right? Things unfold, opportunities show up as you keep taking those steps. And that's what people need to understand. That here's the choice.
And like you said, the ball, it's almost like a ball of energy. I find that once I was able to step into what I really love doing, the business was great. Business was tough. My Aqua-Guard business still is tough. But as soon as I stepped out and stepped into what I love doing, things started happening exponentially. I started meeting the most amazing people on the planet. I'm introduced to these extremely incredible people that I never thought in a million years that I ever would. And it's just like this huge ball of energy. It just grows and grows and grows exponentially. And now here I am now. I've written this book and I'm talking to you. Like, I never thought I would ever be on a podcast. I would ever write a book. It's just because I'm doing what I love to do. I jump out of bed every morning and I'm excited about it. And I have no idea where it's going to lead.
Absolutely.
But that's the fun of it. That's the fun. I was watching, my wife and I were watching this Netflix show last night. It was about... the hawkers that sell food on the side of the streets in all these countries. So we were watching one, and I think this gentleman was in Taiwan. Could have been Indonesia or Taiwan. But he said he would rather be the head of the chicken than the tail of the bull. And what he meant by that is he'd rather be a little tiny guy selling his food on the side of the street, being the head of the chicken, little chicken, as opposed to being the tail of the bull working in big corporate
right.
Follow, and I heard that and I thought, that's really, the guy works to death, but he loves his customers. He jumps up, he's up at, 3:00 in the morning because he's a food vendor. But I thought that was really beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us about your book, Take That Leap. When did you write it? What it's about?
Yeah. Well, I was so fortunate. I was able to set up the business and I was able to take that year off when we traveled to 17 different countries. We ended up starting in Europe to ease our ways in, and then we ended up in the Middle East. We were through Dubai, and then we were all over, like in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Bhutan, and then we were all over South America, Argentina, Colombia. But I ended up wanting to write a book. I started in the rainforest in Malaysia, deep in the rainforest, this little hut in the rainforest of Malaysia. It took me 3 years because I am ADD and I have dyslexia, so it took a little while. But it's a life's journey. It's a life's journey from being just a simple guy having a very difficult time in elementary school and high school, all the way to, having it was the guts or what it was, just to go off and do your own thing. And then at one point in my life, just realized that what was really important, and what was really important to me is family, and spending more time, the time with my family, and being able to work together with my family in giving back. I think that stroking a check is great. Giving of yourself is there's nothing like it. But giving as a family together, I don't know what is more powerful than that. So yeah, the whole book is a bit of an evolution of everything. And because I started writing the book because we're water people, and during the year we spent some time in Bali and Indonesia. We're surfers and scuba divers, so I spent a lot of time in the water, but I really got frustrated with every time it rained, the oceans would fill with plastic and garbage. And I'd be surfing and I couldn't catch a wave because everything would be caught in all this gunk. And so my son and my daughter and I, my other son, we started an app or a movement called True Beach, TRUBEACH. And it's an app, so if you're traveling or people are traveling anywhere in the world, they can upload what the true condition of the beaches and the oceans are, just to bring awareness and hopefully change back into our communities that we have to stop throwing garbage over the fence into a dry creek bed, because eventually it'll end up in the ocean. And so we started that. That kind of came out when I was writing the book. And then I started another nonprofit with my coach. Because my coach found, this is interesting, my coach who works with CEOs all over the world, India, Dubai, Australia, a lot in the US, found out that there's a common thread between all of us. And that is that the majority, or many, many, many of these entrepreneurs are either dyslexic or have ADD. So we created a movement called giftadd.com, which shares stories of successful people. They don't have to be entrepreneurs. They can be entrepreneurs, sports people, just good people that have had good lives that happen to be dyslexic and have ADD. So that's and then the book popped out, and all of the proceeds, not just the profit, but the proceeds, everything that I get in 100% goes to support various causes that our family are involved in. All my speaking, and so it's my audio books on Audible, my books on Amazon, and yeah, so it's just been a journey. It's something again that I never dreamed in a million years that I would ever be at this point.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So what do you think, when you look back at your life, what do you think is the one thing that one mistake people should avoid in life?
Well, the one thing that I found for myself, and this could go for everybody, not just entrepreneurs, is that we tend to sacrifice our family for our job. Entrepreneurs, or even people working in large corporations, that I think that I'll use an entrepreneur as an example. Being an entrepreneur, every single day there's a crisis. There's always some kind of a crisis. And it's always so easy to forget about going to your kid's soccer game or hockey game or whatever it is, or school event. And go, you know what? I've got to take care of this crisis. And you forget, you don't go once. And then you don't go twice to your kid's thing. And then it becomes this rhythm of not going. And the years go by pretty quick. And I see it all the time, that people get to my age and their kids don't want anything to do with them. And their significant others, they could be on their second or third marriage. And I think that we as a society need to spend more time with our kids and with our family. Because for me personally, family is the most important thing. And at the beginning, it was really hard. When my kids were 1 and 2 and 3 years old, I was spent 6 weeks at a time in Southeast Asia because I was selling our equipment. But then I had another talk with my friend Trevor, the football player, and then he is a big family guy. And that kind of shifted everything. And I really made an effort to be at all my kids' hockey games, soccer games, rugby games, you name it. And now we're the best of friends. So, I mean, that's advice. That's just experience that I've seen, and I sharing my experience there, that my kids are all in their mid-20s. My daughter's 19 and my two boys are in their mid-20s, and we're the best of friends. We travel everywhere. We do everything together. It's really an honor to be able to
Awesome.
say that.
So let me ask you something else too. You've been in business. You've talked about having a coach in order to get to that next stage in business. At the same time, on your philanthropic journey too, you've met people, a lot of people that you've helped out. And, I think a lot of people hesitate to ask for help when they need it.
Yes, yeah.
And when you're in business, you try to figure it out yourself. When it's so easy to ask for help and find the right person who can help you see at your issue or your problem through a new pair of eyes. And same thing goes for people who are struggling in life. So what do you think are the reasons why people do that?
It's easier just to put your head down and go. I mean, I was in the same situation with the coach. Like, there's no way I had time to get, to go to this entrepreneurs organization meetings once a month to get a coach. Like, I thought I didn't have time. But both those things have been the two paramount things in my life that have really helped me, because we can't do life alone. We can't do life alone. We need people there for us. And I just found that, and getting a coach, it can be a difficult process. You have to find, the right personality and personality matches. But I didn't have anybody that held me accountable, because I started my business. It was kind of me. I had a partner, but that was about it. But having a coach, having somebody holding me accountable to my dreams, not just the corporate dreams of the business, but what I wanted to design my life like. And that's what we did, is we designed the life in a one-page sheet and all the goals that I wanted to achieve on that sheet. And we worked our way through every single one of them. And at the end of the day, I was able to do that with the help of my coach. Was the last thing on my list was get my freedom back. And that was set the business up to run without me and take a year off and travel with my family. And that was the thing at the top there. And it took a long time to do it, but we did it. But I still go, this is my 16th year going to my class in Boston. And I still have entrepreneurs come up to me and say just that. They say, wow, it's incredible how you've, been able to set things up. And, 15 years ago, I heard you talking about, getting a coach. I still haven't got one yet. I'm thinking about it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, but it's so expensive. I say, you'll get everything back tenfold. I just can't speak loudly enough for the benefit of having a coach and having a good coach.
Awesome.
Somebody to hold you accountable. And also joining a peer group. Peer groups are amazing, but they have their peer. You could be in a peer group with 3, 5, 10 years, but then you may evolve into another one and another one and another one. You just keep growing.
That's pretty awesome. So what do you look forward to at this point in your journey?
Well, this is like the first week that my wife and I have really been empty nesters, I guess, because my daughter is in Japan teaching skiing. My son took a job in the north a little bit. He was back for Christmas, which is great. My other son's an actor and he lives over town, so we're here at Whistler, the two of us hanging out for a bit. So we're having a little bit of time. But I really, what I really look forward to and what really excites me is the youth. People talk about the youth as being lazy and they're on his social media all day long. But they're more switched on than any of our generations ever was. So, if I look at kids now, let's say 19, compared to me at 18 or 19, I just think that they're really switched on. And the thing that really excites me is I get called all the time or texted all the time by friends of my kids to go for coffee. And I go because they want to tell me what their ideas are. They want to say, hey, I've got this great idea. I want to start this little business. I want to do this. What do you think? And I get so excited about hearing all of their ideas. I mean, my wife and I hang out more with our kids' friends than we do with our friends. We have these dinners at our houses with 15 kids, just because I love hearing the excitement in their voice of what they're up to. And I really, these days it's a difficult world out there with everything that's going on. But I really think that our youth are really switched on and are the ones that are going to really turn things around. It's not going to be our generation. It's going to be these kids with theirs. Greta Thunberg, one little 16-year-old kid, what she's been able to mobilize, the youth of the planet on climate change just in a few months has been absolutely amazing. So the youth, I really am excited about the youth of today.
Awesome. Well, Nigel, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, finding about your journey, your business,
Thanks, sir.
Now that you're on the journey of benefiting others and helping others, and we wish you the very best as you move forward.
Oh, thanks, Rajiv. I really, really appreciate it. This has been fantastic.
Hey, I hope you liked that episode. Do check out my website, rajivmudumba.com. And by the way, do check out Top Podcast Mastery Program that's out there on the website. And if you're interested in podcasting, if you're interested in creating a brand image for who you are and what you have to offer, definitely check that course out. I'm sure it's going to provide you immense value, and it'll cut short your journey of researching podcasts by the weeks into a couple of hours to get started and moving on. Thank you very much.